This is after the second coat. I think it looks pretty neat. Disaster struck and I dropped it, and now there is a crack and also some damage on the top. I'm just tired at this point. I think I'm just going to spray it and leave it like that.
Keen followers of this channel will know that I have already printed one of these gouge pots for the green IS200. The first printed pot survived the summer heat, the winter cold without any warping or cracking, so I decided to print one for my own Lexus. This model by the username Plamen Nikolov can be found on Thingiverse.
The print is finished, so I'm going to take it out and see how it did. I mean, first look, no cracks, I think.
After the part is printed, you need to remove excess material left from the overhang supports and the brim.
Removed all of the material. These were the supports for the overhangs, pretty much for these parts, for the inner circles. And yeah, I've looked around and only noticed that there is only one small crack over here. You know, the camera will focus and show. It's right over here where the hats, I guess, the roofs start, and everything else seems to be okay. So yeah, like pretty much all of in front of this, on this layer, there is crack, small crack on the front. So it came out much better than previously, but still some cracking. And at the exact same point, so it must be something to do with the model itself, but I think it will be good enough. And now I could smooth the surface out with either acetone vapor chamber, or I could add like filler and smooth this out, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. I kind of like the raw look of the 3D printed parts. So we'll see a bit later. For those interested in the exact settings and materials used for the 3D printing, so I've used the Devil Design ABS Plus black filament. I've printed this on an Ender 3 printer with a glass pad that was covered in ABS juice or glue or whatever it is called, which is acetone mixed with ABS. It was put before it was printed, and also I've replaced the stock plastic extruder to a metal frame.
If you are planning to print one of your own, these were the settings I've used. Any settings that are not shown were default for the Ender 3 and generic ABS filament in Prusa Slicer.
At the garage, got the gouge pod. Time to see how well it fits. So this gouge pod goes into here, and the last time we printed this one, it didn't fit quite well, and I can see that this time it also seems to be binding maybe somewhere here on these parts, and it kind of rocks back and forth. Maybe I can massage these parts a bit, because if I make the front parts flush, the rear is lifted, and it'd be nice so that the rear would be also like so, because the general shape seems to be okay, just that it needs to go a bit lower. But let's test how the actual gouges fit. With these Innovate gouges, they have quite a thick bezel, as you can see here, and it started to interfere with these little roofs. But this time I printed this gouge pod with 2% increased dimensions to compensate for the shrinkage of ABS, which is around 2%. Like previously I've tested some parts and it seemed about right, about 2%. So yeah, hopefully now it fits. And now, as you can see, it fully fits, doesn't interfere with the roofs. It looks pretty good, I would say. So the increased size did help to fit the gouges, but now I have a problem that it doesn't fit the hole over there. Well, I guess I can cut a bit and see if that helps. Hopefully, because as you can see, it's a very complex shape, many corners, difficult shape to get it right. So I guess some massaging is necessary. If I measure the diameter now, it is exactly 52 millimeters. So I think I got the percentage of shrinkage pretty good. So now I think I'm going to cut like around the perimeter, make the hole bigger. Hopefully it does not interfere anymore with like somewhere here, and I can make it sit flush. And since the part is damaged previously, I don't mind if I, butcher this. And I don't know, I haven't yet decided if I'm going to leave this 3D printed finish, or am I going to smooth it out and paint it maybe. I don't know, we'll have to see. This is how much I had to cut to make it fit somewhat decent. So now the gaps are well, they are horrible, but at least they are somewhat even throughout. It is very hard to position it, but the gaps are somewhat okay now all around. I have to do a final positioning, and well, since the gaps are so wobbly and uneven, I have decided that I will try to make this one piece, add of course some fillers, smooth things out, and make it look nice, because well, this is not ideal, but I think the result should look pretty good. Did the first rough layer of filler for the gouge pod, and it already looks better, though this corner, well, it will never be perfect, but at least no one will ever see it pretty much, and I'll do my best to try to blend it. The sanding and filler stage is pretty much done with the gouge pod. Pretty happy with the result. There is still this small place that needs some filler, but the rest is pretty much straight, at least in the places that I care about. These inner places are not really nice, but they will be covered with the gouges, so not really a problem. And it's pretty difficult to sand there, at least sand to a straight level or something, because there is not much space and everything is in the way. So yeah, there may be some more spots that will come out once I've primered it, but I think in general it came out pretty nice, but it took quite a while. I mean, I've started in autumn, I think, maybe early winter, and now it's spring. I tried to record this clip in the outside, but there is a factory outside. You can probably hear it, but outside it's even more loud, so the commentary was not that great. But yeah, I've primered this gouge pod. There are still a couple of places that ideally I would fix, primarily this spot. I've had problems with the spray gun. It kind of made this primer coat very textury, but my wife looked at it and said, you know what, just paint it black and you'll be finished. The texture will be better than full gloss finish. And she might be right, I don't know, but I have a can of black paint, black matte paint, and I think I'm going to paint it black and see how it looks. If it looks terrible, I'll just sand it down to complete flatness and, you know, try again. If I like it, I'll just leave it at that. First coat is on. There is one slight run over there. I was too eager to cover everything in the first coat, which is always a bad idea, but I think it looks pretty okay apart from that run. Oh, and also there are these marks of some imperfection. I don't know if it is a cut or some dirt particle. One also here. This is after the second coat. I think it looks pretty neat. There are of course some imperfections, but I don't think I'll be bothering with those. And the texture seems pretty okay, I think. It should go well with the other interior parts. I'll leave this to dry and then we'll test fit it. Disaster struck. I was trying to remove the vents that I test fit and I dropped it, and now there is a crack and also some damage on the top. I'm just tired at this point. I think I'm just going to spray. So this is the final look. I mean, the crack is very visible and it's going to annoy me, but I don't have time to, you know, sand this back down again, add filler and repaint it. I'm going to do that once the car is, you know, running and I can spare some time on these nice details. I mean, I don't know if the color is matching okay. The plastics around it are kind of faded and have like a bluish color, but in general I kind of like the texture. But the crack is killing me. Oh well, this gouge pod is done for now, and thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next video.